And Sandy, take it away.
Take it away. Okay, what we're going to talk about today is teaching 2D representation for children with CVI. Pictures, videos, anything 2D. These are pictures from American Printing House for the Blind materials, and you can see the challenge for our kids with CVI that have trouble interpreting information. All of us know that these are flowers, but look at the different ways that flowers can be presented. But and it's not just color, because even black and white, you know which one, you know that top right one is a flower. Some of them have yellow, some of them have pointy leaves, big center, small center, but we all know those are flowers. The same is true of this. We all know that these are apple, even though these pictures are vastly different from each other. And that is the challenge for our kids with CVI that have to learn to interpret what they see, and they don't automatically take that vision information and generalize it to know that all of these things, like what is it about all of these things that make them apple? That's not something that comes automatic to our children with CVI. This is another example, which was a real challenge, and it is an APH putting things in order. And my picture's cut off a little bit. I don't know about everybody else's, but that's okay. But you see, if you put these in order, the person looks out and sees that it's snowing. The representation of snowflakes is blue. And then they roll up the two balls and then they make a snowman. So that's the order of the pictures. But if I'm a kid with CVI, I might not be paying attention to that minor detail that gives me that essential piece of information, which is this blue and white stuff, and then the white ball that really doesn't stand out in that middle picture, and then they become a snowman. If I'm a kid with CVI that's attracted to color, I'm more interested in looking at the red and yellow house, or the kid dressed in red and yellow. And I've totally missed the essence of what that was supposed to be communicating, let alone our kids with CVI in Arizona, Southern California, Hawaii, parts of the world that never see snow. That's a whole different story. So teaching pictures. Pictures can be used when a child is approaching the end of phase 2, somewhere around a 5, maybe 6-ish on the CVI range. Prior to that, children are not really able to make meaning of material that's two-dimensional. Backlit images are typically visually more accessible. So you see my little friend Lydia, and that's the app Little Bear Sees. She's able to look at that and watch it move. And if we position her right, she can actually activate that. But that's far more enticing, that backlit image, than just a photograph would be. This child was funny because her mother claimed that she really became Appleholic with this iPad. But it was one of the things that she could visually access. This is my friend Joshua, who wants to do his worksheet on the iPad. So that worksheet that you see on his desk has also been put on his iPad, which makes that information more accessible to him. So how do we start? I typically begin with photos of favorite objects that the child visually recognizes, and I'm pairing the photo with the actual object. So I take nothing abstract. I take a photo of the very, very favorite, most motivating, visually recognizable thing that the child knows. So this is Elizabeth, who loved the guitar and her daddy playing guitar. So one of the first photos for her is an actual photo of a guitar. Same thing, she's a little bit older here, but she liked to play basketball. She liked to go to the basketball court with her dad. She didn't quite get why she couldn't just run after the ball when any teenager threw it. That was another issue. But we started with the picture of a real basketball. School bus, very recognizable for my friend Eliza. And in one of her first books about going to school, we have the actual school bus. Had to put this in. Wrigley's just too cute, but this is a different child's pet when we are naming people in the house. These are photos of a child's favorite things, a CD and a musical cube for making choices. I left this in because I want you to see when we start with photos, you cannot put shiny lamination on them. You see what's happened to the CD picture? It just becomes something shiny to look at. I have been able to find matte lamination. Some people say don't laminate pictures. I have kids that are far too tough on pictures for them not to be laminated. They may drool on them. They may try to tear them. So I need mine laminated, but I use matte lamination now. Then I create a book with the object in various places, various sizes, and then finally with various distractors. I don't want the child to think that my cup is this only one picture that's a 4x6 and nothing else means cup. I want them to understand, let's say Clifford is a favorite character, that this is also Clifford. This is also Clifford. And now we've got a distractor. Which one is Clifford? Is the child really looking at Clifford to know Clifford's the dog and got 2 eyes and nose and ears? Or is it just a red thing on the page? That's even harder because Elmo now has eyes. And that would be the hardest because you see the shape is similar and the color similar. But I really want to be sure that the child is discriminating the picture. So this is my friend Fully, and he's learning photos of his cup.
The drink, good job. You want to drink, Fully? Find the drink. One last time, okay? Can you find the drink?
And she's actually moving that to get his visual attention.
Where's the drink? Nice job, Fully. That's the drink. Here you go. You can finish it. You did such a great job today. Hooray, hooray. Good job.
The next thing, once we have photographs that are meaningful, is we need to make sure that those meaningful photographs are used in meaningful routines. So this is the same child at lunchtime.
Good job, Fully. We're going to have one more bite and then we're going to take a drink, okay? Good? One more? Okay. A drink. You want a drink? 1 second, Fully. Yeah, drink, look what I have. Let's pick up your head. Find the drink. Good job, Folly. You found the drink. Here you go. Drink. Yeah. Yum. No, you don't want? Oh. Okay. There you go. You can drink. Sorry. I'm going to do it one more time.
One more time.
Okay. I'm going to switch it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My turn. Oh, do you want more to drink? Do you want more to drink? Well, if you want more, you can find the drink. Good looking. Nice job, Folly. Yay! You found the drink. There you go.
Over his head it goes. That's okay. But this child has very complex communication needs. He does not use speech to communicate. He has 1 or 2 signs for things that are very important to him. And his team has been working to teach him photos of things that are very meaningful to hopefully give this child some opportunity to have some choice. You see right now the distractor that she's using is only a blank piece of paper, but then later there'll be a distractor that'll be something different. This is another example in a functional routine. This Farmer Says toy was a favorite of this child, and they also wanted him to spend more time looking up. So this is actually Velcroed up on the wall. In order to get the toy, the child needs to go independently to this spot in the room and then pick the switch that actually has the photo of the toy that he wants. And when he presses it, that's a voice output. You know, it says probably Farmer Says. This is a realistic picture of a deodorant. It was part of a child's morning routine. Then we also, so once we have, you know, they have specific photos of specific things that they know, we have to then, we've not only presented it in different contexts and different sizes, but then we have to present multiple exemplars of that concept that they know. So for example, if you know ball, and ball is something you want to play with, look at all of these examples of what most kids would know was a ball. So Elizabeth started with the photo of Daddy's guitar, but she also needs to know that even if it's purple, it's a guitar. All of these are also guitar, and even black and white line drawings. And those are the absolute hardest to interpret. You also present pictures with decreased complexity of array. So if we're thinking about a child who maybe is doing pictures in a book or making choices like Foley was, you don't want to have, you saw that he only had a blank as opposed to the picture, but we have to think about the complexity of array. So for one child, we were reading the book Corduroy. Well, we pulled the figure of corduroy out separately and used that in teaching and asking questions and who want, you know, what did the little girl want to buy or who was missing a button. It's much easier to find corduroy when he's by himself than say this picture of corduroy. This is Lisa and her mom when she wanted to buy the toy, and you can see that it's easier to see Lisa and her mom if we crop that picture some. And again, Lisa looking at corduroy because she's going to buy the bear is easier than the picture on the right when she's looking and there's a lot of toys. This is a child who had a brain injury at about 15 months old, and she had very limited ability to communicate, and we were working on recognizing pictures, but the thing was, she was a smart kid and wanted the content that everybody else had. So when they were reading, "Is the spaghetti ready, Freddie?" You know, "No, I can't play with you, Freddie, not now. Can't you see I'm eating spaghetti?" They took the text that the rest of her peers were hearing, because that's what she wanted, and simplified the book for her. I love it on pancakes with ice cream and cake. When we're presenting pictures, we have to have increasing amounts of complexity of array. So at first, we're really reducing that complexity, but then as we go on, we want to move kids towards more, you know, if they're capable, towards more typical what's in a book. I had a little friend that loved Thomas and Percy, so then we made a hide and seek game with Thomas and Percy. So he had to show me, where's Thomas, where's Percy? Well, that one was pretty easy. Now, can you find Thomas? Now, can you find Percy? And what about now? Once symbols are more complex than photos. The cartoon pictures I've been showing you are more complex than photos. Photos are the easiest, then kind of realistic color drawings and black and white drawings are a realistic black and white is next, and then the hardest are the more abstract black and white drawings. And then we have this whole category of symbols, and symbols are more complex than photos. But there are some things that you can't represent very well with a photo, such as go, or even bathroom, because they all look different, or stop, or I want more of something. But once the child begins to understand that the 2D photo is a representation or a symbol, then you can start introducing some symbols with color, some line drawings, with very, very abstract concepts such as yes and no. The word yes and the word no outlined in a color is no more complex than some board maker symbol that's yes and no. So you might consider actually using printed words. So one of my friends that was using photos to make choices and to know what was going on in her day, we decided to go with the symbol for bathroom because this is the symbol she would look for if she was anywhere in the community, and it's pretty universal. It didn't take very long before, you know, we could say it's time to go use the bathroom, and she had the sign, and then there was a sign on the door that said the same, you know, that was the very same sign, and she started fussing. Well, she was fussing because she didn't want to, not because she didn't understand what was happening next. This same child, you see at the top, there was the word go, and she went a lot of places. She would go for a walk, she could go for a ride in the car, she could go outside to the park. I think that's what that picture is. She could go on the bus, she could go for a ride on her adapted bike. And so what her mother did, we taught the word go on a green circle, and then we took that and put it at the top of the window. Hold on one second. Thank you very much. I'm at my daughter's house and a dog just jumped on the bed. That's okay. That's okay. So she would press go and there was voice output. And then her mother could say to her, we're going to go for a walk, or we're going to go in the car. And you see the Velcro on the sign at the top. So she was able to go and then say where she was going to go. You see that we used a symbol for walk. And again, it's like that was one of those words that if we put a person walking, are you talking about that person? And that's the person you're going to see or walk with. And so we decided to go with a more abstract symbol. And those were taught by systematically using, just like we did with the word go, we would use it over and over in the context that she would use it in a routine. And so she learned that that symbol meant walk. Did she know it was actually a person walking? I'm not sure. She just knew that that constellation of green meant walk. And yes,
Sandy,
yes, ma'am.
there is a question, sorry, that I might have missed, that says, what do you use to create customized photo pairings, such as the example you showed with Clifford?
What do I don't understand the question. Say that again.
Yeah. Michelle, do you want to unmute yourself and ask directly?
Yeah, ask me.
Sorry, trying to unmute myself. Yes.
Fine.
So what like what program or app or whatever it is, how are you doing that? Like what specifically are you using to create those customized images for a child?
For me, and I'm not super tech savvy, I take a photo with my phone and then print it and cut it out and put it on black. I know it's not very tech savvy, but that's how I've done it. The picture of the cup that was Foley's cup, they did the same thing. They took the picture of the cup, and you can either do it on a plain black background, and then it's okay because it's on plain black. We had a picture book the other day that was gorgeous, a grandmother had made for her granddaughter, and they just took a black felt blanket and put it down on the floor and took pictures of her toys and bottle and things like that on this black background. So then when it was printed, the background was black, and you know, you had it on plain black. A lot of times I don't have that option, so I will end up cutting out, literally taking a photo, printing it, cutting it out, and mounting it on something else. Did that answer the question?
She said thank you. So yes, I think it did. And you're right, that picture book that was made in Shutterfly.
Shutterfly.
That family made that picture book in Shutterfly. And someone else also mentioned that PowerPoint works well too. You could do this in PowerPoint.
Yeah, you can do a background fill in PowerPoint and fill the background with black. I have one child, and now we're having to do everything virtual, and it's so hard. But I want her to look and make a choice. And she likes Elmo, so I've put Elmo on the page, and she has to look at him. But once I get a picture of Elmo on the page in PowerPoint, then I can just totally fill the background with black and that's pretty easy. So what are salient features? Salient features are the defining elements that distinguish one target from another. They are the key pieces of distinct information that facilitate the recognition of an image, object, environment, or person. So what are the salient features of guitar that Elizabeth has to know in order to know any representation of guitar? This one's fairly easy. Type it in the box and Jen will let us know what are the salient features of elephant.
Tusks, trunk, tusks, legs, trunk, gray, tail, leathery skin, Ears,
Okay.
trunk, legs, and ears. Eyes.
What we have to be careful of is I can't just use legs because how many animals have 4 legs, right? I can't just use eyes because our animals, you know, cats, dogs, cows, they all have eyes. So we have to pick out the thing that defines this all the time, most of the time, not all the time. You'll always find exceptions. So perhaps the tusk, the big ears, the long trunk. Because if that picture were in black and white, any 2-year-old could tell you without color, without seeing the leather skin, if they just had a black and white line drawing of elephant, almost every 2-year-old will be able to tell you that's an elephant. So what have they figured out that makes it an elephant? Typically, it's the trunk and the big ears. This one gets even harder. What are the salient features of apple?
Large stem.
Okay.
Shape, stem, a lot of shape. Wide at the top and smaller at the bottom. Shape of fruit.
Shape is probably pretty telling, but we can't just say round because oranges are round, right? It has to be something, and we can't say color because again, if you remember the pictures of apple I had at the beginning of this presentation, they had all different colors of apple and some were even black and white, and yet you knew it was an apple. So it probably, they have kind of that little bump at the bottom, perhaps a stem, and yeah, bigger at the top, although, yeah, bigger at the top. Toothbrush is probably a little easier. What would be the defining features of a toothbrush?
Bristles.
Bristles,
Long handle, bristles.
long handle and bristles. And probably small bristles, because a handle and bristles could be a hairbrush, but short bristles.
Narrow handle, yeah, bump and handles. Yep.
Yep. And butterfly. Look at this butterfly, this butterfly, this butterfly. What do they all have in common? What makes us know, what makes almost any child know this is a butterfly as well as this, as well as this?
Wings, body, and antenna.
Okay.
2 large wings, 2 small wings.
Mm-hmm.
Antenna, wings, long body. Yeah, definitely wings is a big.
The wings and the long body, yes, that tells us it's a butterfly. If you want to, in Matt Tejan's work, What's the Complexity Framework in Dr. Roman's Advanced Principles book, he talks a lot more about representations and looking at in detail what level of representation can a child handle. Do they need a real object with a photo? Can they handle a color photo? Or do they know what things are in black and white? And even kids with vast knowledge of things. I have one kid that's really smart and he's doing 2nd grade work, and they had black and white line drawings of, I forget what the science topic was, but there was a shark, and he told me that the big fish in the picture was a shark, and the 3 little fish at the bottom, he says they're a school of fish. He knew it was a school of fish because there's more than one. And then he said, oh, and there's a whale. And I thought, a what? And there were just curvy lines, which were really to represent water, that these creatures were in water. They were probably talking about habitats. But because it was black and white line drawings, he interpreted that curved line that was supposed to be water as a whale. And in his mind that fit because whales go in the water, sharks are in the water, schools of fish are in the water, and that's how he had made sense of it. But you see how kids can get very confused. So what we have to do is to teach our children and use salient feature language from as early as, you know, an object first has a name and then we have one or two salient features of it. And we use that language with kids so that they begin to be able to, they've got to know, when I look at something and I don't know what it is, how do I figure it out? Because they don't have the same ability to generalize that visual information and to then abstract salient features. I mean, a 2-year-old can't tell you that they've abstracted, you know, what's a cat versus a dog, but they can tell you which ones are cats and which ones are dogs. We have to bring that to a more cognitive level with our kids. So then there's pictures and communication symbols. This is a calendar box used for a child, and as you see, it's a combination of actual objects. The book is an object, but it's got the symbol book on it, then another actual object. Then that next object, it's a photo of a toy that's round and you kind of shake it and it's got little balls in it. The kid really loved to play with that. So this is one of those, what do you use as a symbol for break? And we just randomly chose something we knew she would always go to just play with, to kind of chill out a minute and take a break. And so pairing that photo with the, you get a break now, was our way of teaching her that. And then the horse was an actual photo of a horse she liked to ride. And then the last thing on the calendar is a small silver bowl, because that was a object cue for something she liked to do. This was also a morning schedule for a child. And this child, and this is where you have to be aware of the array that the child can handle. This child couldn't handle, if there were an array of 4 things up there, she didn't necessarily have the let's go left to right, and she didn't necessarily have the ability to look at all 4 at one time. That would have been too confusing. So her mother created this. You uncover, the first one is the bus, you're going to school. And then the next one, I don't even remember what's under those other flaps, but you can have, you know, once one's open, then you know you go to the next one and open it, and you are teaching the left to right. But you can also cover things up and have only one symbol available at a time, if that's what the child needs.
Sandy,
Yes.
what did you use for the black trays in the object or picture calendar?
Let me back up. I can't tell you, the mother did this, and I think these were just black trays she found at Target. I don't know what these are. I didn't create this. The child's mom did. But I do think that, I mean, because so she didn't have access to let me go to APH and get stuff, so I think mom put it together from something she found at either like an Office Depot, a Staples, or a Target.
I bet they could even be takeout containers.
They could be takeout. I've seen some really nice rectangular takeout containers, and it's not shiny black. Save them when you get your takeout foods, and we're all doing a lot of takeout now, so everybody can save them. But yeah, they could have been takeout containers. I don't know what they were.
Yeah, some people are saying you can get black meat trays at some of the restaurant supply stores.
Okay,
Um,
that's good.
and remove.bg is a free website and works great to instantly remove background. You can upload any photo, but you only get the low resolution photo in return with the background removed.
You can do that. There's a way to do that, and I can send it to you, Jen, in Word, I believe it is, where you kind of, you have a picture and you want the background taken out, and you kind of outline the picture, and then you can remove the background. That can be done in Word also. I'm not real good at that. I tried it one time and it was a disaster, but if the photo's simple, it's easy. I was trying to do it with a dog and it just didn't turn out well at all. But yeah, lots of ways to do that. This is a child's calendar, and for the day was Friday. And what you see, there's the word outlined. That was years ago before we had Roman bubbling, but it was outlined in red, and then she recognized faces. So you could say you're having speech therapy and then you're having physical therapy by the face of the person that was coming to do the home visit. Then you see the symbol they used for play underneath physical therapy. I don't think this child knew that that was a car, a ball, and blocks. She knew that that group of colors and objects was her symbol for play. And then Dad came home, and then there's a picture of her sleepy time bear, because then it would be nighttime. And you can see off to the side, if you look carefully, there is a yellow bucket, which was the all done bucket. You can see halfway see the picture that's on the all done bucket. In communication systems, you have to watch the number of picture choices due to complexity. I like to make sure kids know what the symbols are before they're actually put on a device, or you put only a few on the device and you teach that symbol on the device until the kid actually knows what it is. This is a hard picture to see. There are actually 3 symbols there. Those are not white squares. But what Debbie has done is just take and cover with black cardboard the front of the device, except for the 3 symbols she's working on with this child.
You have to stop.
You ready?
Yeah, go.
Right, so then it was go, but she's only working on 3 symbols with her at the time. Then we have our other friend, Marin, who started with single photos, and then that was her calendar. You saw we had some photos and some picture symbols. Every one of Marin's picture symbols have to be taught, but once she learns what the symbol is, she knows what it is. This is her device. I want to show you her.
To open your animals page, please. We're reading Barnyard Dance, so can you open your animals page, please? Thank you.
Butterfly. Horse.
Oh, you love your horses and your butterflies. All right. Oh, what's that?
Bunny rabbit.
It's a
Caterpillar. Frog.
Marin. Who says moo? Yes. Cow says moo.
Caterpillar. Turtle.
I know. Stomp your feet, clap your hands. Everybody ready for a barnyard dance. Bow to the, no, you do it. Good girl. Bow to the,
Duck.
try again, find cow.
Caterpillar.
Twirl with the, you can do it.
Pig.
Nice looking. If you know how. Bounce with the bunny rabbit. Where's the bunny rabbit, Erin? It's up here.
Fish.
Try again.
Bunny rabbit.
Very nice. Strut with the quack, quack.
Duck.
Yes. Spin with the,
Chicken.
now cluck, cluck, cluck. With a bat and a moo and a cock-a-doodle. Who's this?
So you see, they were able to do that lovely shared reading. The book was below where it's a book she's loved forever. And so what they've done is take the device and have her add in words like other kids would add in words. But you see her using that device, go to your animals page. Does she always do what you tell her? No, that's okay. And then, but once she got there, and I think when she didn't get cow correct, she was in the vicinity. And when the higher ups are harder, and sometimes she likes to use your hand under her hand for stability to reach that high. So you saw Kirsten do that with her.
Sandy,
Yes.
we have a great question. Do you have any suggestions for what to say when therapists say it doesn't matter what the photo or symbol is or if the child understands it? It's all about teaching motor memory related to AAC devices.
Yes. What I have to say to that is that eventually, I do believe, like for Marin, I do believe a lot of that's motor memory. And I'm okay with that because I don't want her to use all of her vision battery on looking at a device and figuring out where things are. I want her to pretty automatically know where things are so that she doesn't have to use all her vision energy. However, I feel very strongly that we need to teach kids that these things are meaningful prior to using them on a device. I know that some people say, yeah, it doesn't matter, it's all about motor memory. But when Marin hits the wrong button, and she's got a guard on, a key guard on hers for stabilizing her hand to then get, a lot of times she gets her middle finger in the hole. But if she hits the wrong one, she will then stop and look and go, oh, wait, that's not what I meant, and then get the right one. So I want her to be able to use her vision, but I don't want her to have to use it all the time. One of the things that happened with Marin was she had a device, and then it needed to be upgraded to a different device that was going to give her more opportunities for communicating. And so we spent a lot of time going back and forth, the old device, the new device. The old one she was more comfortable with. She loved it. She could use it. She was fluent with it. But the new one we needed, and finally we had to just say, okay, we've worked with the new one enough. We're just going to have to take the plunge and just use the new one. And it's going to be a little hard for a while. But what we found was, her mom said to me, I went for a session one afternoon, and her mom said, she is really tired a lot lately. And I went, okay, and she does have a mitochondrial disability and energy can fluctuate. And we did, started doing whatever we were doing with this session. And what I noticed was, after about 30 minutes, she was exhausted, but that was because on this new device, she was having to use her vision to go, okay, where is that symbol on this device? And because she hadn't quite developed the motor memory patterns to use this new device. And so what we realize is, in the transition to the new device, just know that having to use her vision more on this device is then fatiguing her a lot. In general, So we have to give her that leeway, and she has to learn it and practice it and all that stuff. But in general, when I'm teaching her a lesson about math or a reading lesson, I don't want every bit of her energy to be about having to look and communicate. I want her communication to be fairly fluid, and I want her to have the visual energy to do what it. So for example, when Marin and I did the book on corduroy, you can't have every symbol you want on a device. That's called prime real estate. There are very little rights. So you got to have powerful words on the device. So then when I'm teaching some specific content, like we're studying the book Corduroy, we're going to talk about the bear and he's missing a button. And we're going to talk about the little girl buying things in a store. That was something Marin knew. We were going to talk about how did the girl feel. We were going to, all of these comprehension questions. The girl went to the store. What did she want to buy? When I'm asking Marin those questions, I still use photos, like you saw the simplified pictures of corduroy. So I would have like corduroy and a ball and a something else. What did the little girl want to buy when she went to the store? And Marin would need to show me the right picture to answer the question. And so, because you can't put every bit of content on her device. So we still use pictures and photos and symbols and experience books for all sorts of content. And that's where I want her visual energy to be. I want her to have visual energy to look at those images and tell me what it is she wants to say, and or what is the answer to my question, the comprehension question about the story we've just read, and not to have to spend all of her energy looking for symbols. However, she really does have to visually know those symbols. And I figured that out. I mean, I saw that she really did when we switched devices, and visually she had to look to find where the symbols were on this new device. And now she's more fluid with the new device. And so, it doesn't take all of her energy. I don't want all of her energy going into communicating, but I do think kids need to know what the symbols mean. And sometimes, so Marin was a process. And at the beginning, when we're starting to work on photos and we've got a few symbols, and I've got video of Marin when she's younger, and we've got 2 symbols on a board, 2 voice output switches. One says playtime, one says drink milk. And that's the level that she was using symbols and voice output, prior to a device. And but there was so much more that she needed to say. So we didn't limit her communication because of her vision. We taught her auditory scanning for that part of it. Listen to your choices, and we give her choices, and which one do you want? You saw her clapping. That was her yes response. And so we used a lot of different strategies. At the time, we were building up her vision to be able to handle a device like you saw visually. We weren't just stopping her from communicating. We were using all sorts of ways to help her communicate, but we didn't leave the vision behind. I don't want it to be just motor planning, because then when you hit the wrong button, where do you go with that? And every time Debbie adds either a new function, so for example, one of the questions Marin has a hard time with is she can answer yes or no if you say, do you want to do this? Yes, no. Okay, she's got that. But if I hold up Elmo and say, is this Cookie Monster? That's a harder question to answer yes or no. So when we're teaching, that's kind of a new function of yes and no. We will set up activities and practice it with her device. Or when there is new content, like now maybe I want you to be able to, at first we only start with farm animals, but now we've got you know, water animals and wild animals and zoo animals, you know, all different kinds of categories of animals. So as soon as something new is put on the device, then we make sure there are lessons that directly teach what that content is on the device so that she learns the symbols. Marin is still not at the place where she can look at a new symbol and pull out the salient feature and know what something is. So for example, I tested her a couple years ago, and she knows animals pretty well. Those have always been very motivating. So I picked concepts she already knew: horse, dog, butterfly, I forget the last one. And I had photos, and I had realistic, and I had board maker symbols and black and white. And I showed her the black and white symbol of the horse and said, "What is this?" And she went to her device and she said, "Spider." And I'm thinking, spider? Why are you calling that spider? And what I realized later is that spider was the one symbol that was a black and white drawing on her device. Everything else had color. And so she really has not pulled out salient features of horse and what makes a horse a horse. So she can recognize almost any photo of a horse, maybe some color realistic, but beyond that, it gets a little shaky with, does she understand the salient features? And so I find Marin to be a child that we still have to consistently, directly teach every bit of 2D vision information that we want her to interpret, to use in learning. We have to, because Marin likes to memorize the right answer. So they were working on habitats, and then she had a bunch of pictures with Kirsten that you saw there. And it was like, okay, which things go in the water and which things go in the barn? And, you know, she could sort those pictures beautifully, but it was the same pictures and it was the same, you know, background. So I said, okay, let's do it this way. And I got a bowl of water, and I got a barn, a wooden barn we had to play with. And then I got 3D water animals and farm animals, and was asking her which one goes in the barn, which one goes in the water. And she got really, really angry with me because she wants to memorize the right answer and get through the task. And how dare I ask her to look at it and do it in a different way? So we just have to know that about her, and know that we have to keep working on teaching her how to interpret visual information. Other questions?
Sandy, we did have we have an AAC specialist actually on the call who had some comments. Hopefully she can unmute herself and.
Yeah. Hi, this is Gabriela. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, thank you. No, I just want to say that as an AAC specialist, like, we kind of used to see things the opposite way. It's like we didn't know that children with CVI could improve their vision. So we kind of started with using their audition, like using auditory scanning, and we didn't want to sacrifice communication just because they couldn't see. But when we learned, I went to a workshop with you. I'm from Mexico, so I went so that's where I learned that these children could improve. So we started doing things differently.
Yes.
And we were still using auditory scanning, but making them use their vision more during the day when we read books to them.
Yes.
Talking about salient features. And I think that really changed a lot of things in communication for them, because we realized that the speed they were learning new vocabulary was like really increased.
Yeah.
Because they were able to see things in the world. So that actually had an impact in their communication. And we don't have a lot, but we now have some students that are able to use eye gazing control. So that's
beautiful
huge for us. Yeah. So I think we really have to get out of our silos and learn about all this.
Really do. And I think, you know, the latest thing in AAC, from what I understand, and that's not my specialty, but the latest thing is that there is no hierarchy of symbols, right? They're just symbols and we just teach them. And if we teach them enough, the kids get them. But what we know about CVI is there really is a hierarchy for kids to be able to access 2D vision information. And we have to teach in that hierarchy. Now, we cannot, like you said, hold back communication. And I don't ever believe in holding back communication until the vision catches up, because communication is just such a fundamental human skill, human right to be able to communicate. I mean, Marin, now that it's kind of like her mother laughed, and we started with literally, she was banging her head, she's 3 years old, then you have to figure out what she wants. And I said to her mother, what you would do with another 3-year-old is say, use your words, but Marin didn't have words. So we got this one voice output, single switch, I want something. And then once Marin said, I want something, not with behavior, but with her words that we gave her, then we could move into auditory scanning and figure out what she wanted and, take it from there. But her mother we were laughing about it. She's like, really, she now thinks, because we've given her the chance to communicate, that she has the right to do this all the time, and gets really mad if we don't give her the opportunity to say what she wants to say. And I think communication is such a fundamental, human right, connects us with our world, with people, to be able to say what we want or what we need, or to have an opinion. Marin gets really sassy sometimes, and she'll tell me to go away or say goodbye on her device. Like, no, I'm sorry, we're not all done. I'm not leaving. You're not saying goodbye to me. It's not that time. But that's okay. That's really, really okay for her to be able to say that and to say those kind of things. So I agree with, it really does have to be a fluid process, where maybe you have to start with objects, and you have to start with, hold on one second. You have to start with objects, and you have to start with, then maybe move into photos. But in the meantime, you've got to work with other ways for these guys to be able to communicate. You can't wait until their vision's good enough to communicate, in my opinion. They usually have so much more to say. And so while we started with auditory scanning, that's not what we do mostly with Marin now. We gave her that ability when she was young, so she knows she can communicate. She knows she can let us know things. We continue, like you said, Gabriella, to work on the vision, and the vision improves, and she can learn about her world, and now she can use her vision much, much more in communication. If we really get stuck, then we can go back to auditory scanning or something like that. But I'll tell one more interesting story about Marin, and then I want to talk about eye gaze systems, because that's a tough thing for our kids. Marin, I found out, also will use her device to figure out, it's like, how clever is she to figure out what she wants to say. So one of the things that she loves to do with me is we play with Elmo. And we pretend with Elmo, he eats, he sleeps, he does, whatever, because that facilitating that level of representation really helps with language. So we do that, playing with Elmo, and I'll show up and she says, feel tired on her device. Well, she's not saying she feels tired. She wants to play Elmo feeling tired and going to sleep. And so we'll play with Elmo. And then I realized one day, the blanket we had for Elmo when we put him down was black. And we put him down to sleep. And then later we were doing something and Marin kept saying black. And I didn't know if she was just off topic or whatever. And then I figured out she had no way to say we need his blanket. He's laying down, or I want him to lay down with his black blanket. So she would go to her color page and say black. And it was like, oh, you want his black blanket? Well, let's put, And she would just get so excited, and she figured out how to say things on her device using what she had. And I didn't take her comments as off topic. It's like, okay, you're really communicating with me. But she knows how to manipulate her device and figure out how to say. And this is a child that started in phase 1 looking at shiny red things. That's another thing I need to say. Never give up on any kid or figure they can't do it, because she was a kid that started in phase 1, looking at shiny red things. And now she still has complex communication needs, and she's able to use a pretty sophisticated voice output device to communicate what she wants to communicate. If there are any questions, stop me. The other thing I want to talk about is the use of eye gaze, because eye gaze can be a real challenge for many of our kids with CVI, partially because the eye gaze systems, typically you need to be focused on an image for a couple of seconds. If I'm wrong on that, somebody correct me. But you need to be able to focus on an image so that it can read your eyes, and then that's your choice or that's what you're saying. And that can be very hard for some of our kids. However, I have a few kids that have very, very limited ability to use their arms, to reach, to push buttons, they just either have very, very low tone or have spastic quadriplegia and very, very high tone. And for some of those kids, we've had to really, really work on having them understand, like as they've moved out of phase 1 and they've got consistent looking, then we have to teach them early phase 2 that looking is a way that you can act on your environment. So if I hold up 2 toys, you can look at the one you want, and that's communicating to me, oh, you're telling me you want this toy, not the other one. And it has to be done. It takes a long time, but some of our kids, we really do have to teach them that looking is the response that will help them act on their environment, so that we can be thinking about looking down the road as a way to communicate. Any comments? Yes.
So I was going to say, in relation to this, we have another great question. How do we know when it is cognitive deficit versus CVI related?
Give me an example.
I think when in relation to providing these, in Grace Kit, you can unmute yourself and ask on your own if you'd like. But I think in regards to using communication devices, more advanced communication devices, if a child's not capable of that, how do we know when it's cognitive versus vision?
Yes.
Okay.
When you described that the child was behavioral, it was hard to know what how one could tease out if it was the child's inability to either communicate or cognitively, developmentally, they weren't where they at a place where they can communicate or they can demonstrate
I think you have to
proper behavior.
I think you have to presume competence. Think back to Foley, who was looking for the picture of his cup. Foley is unable to use speech. He doesn't understand very many words. He's not a child that maybe able to communicate on a device like Marin's, but we don't know until we try. And so we have to start and do it very systematically. Because honestly, when I met Marin when she was almost 2 years old, and she was just this little kind of low tone thing sitting in her stroller, not looking at anything and not doing anything. If you'd have told me this was going to be the same kid 10 years later, I'd have been shocked. So I think we can't say that the child is too cognitively impaired until we really, what I think people do is they throw 2D materials at children and it hasn't been taught, and the children fail and people assume it is cognition, when actually maybe we didn't teach them in the right way to begin with. So, I mean, Foley's pretty impaired, but if he gets a number of picture symbols across, you know, he's probably 10 or 11 now, I forget how old he is, you know, and we're just at the point where he's looking at one picture and making a choice. But if we don't work with that and try to give him a way to make some choices and have some control in his life, we're dooming him to a life of isolation. Speech is probably not going to be an option for him if he's not making any sounds at this time. He might make a few signs. You saw him actually sign drink, but he doesn't have the motor control to be a fluent signer. If we don't work to give him something visual for communication, we just doom him to a life of isolation. And there he sits, not able to make any choices, have any control, except with his behavior. And, okay, comment, did that answer your question? Or are you talking about something else?
Oh, no, you did. And it just sounds like we need to turn every stone, try to work in a sequential order, and maximize what they're demonstrating.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
For kids with CVI, there is a hierarchical order for them to understand 2D materials. The little girl that you saw the schedule for, that we talked about those black boxes and where they came from,
yes.
she had been in school for a couple years. Her mom had been sick, so mom hadn't really been on top of the school program at that time. But then mom felt better and she got back to school. And she asked me to see her child, and I went and observed her child in a classroom. And I said to them, does she have a a schedule or anything? Oh yes, there's one by the door. And so there's a line of, board maker picture symbols by the door. This is the schedule for the day. Never was that taught to her. Never was that up close to her. Never were any of those. I mean, they were all board maker symbols. And it's like, yeah, she doesn't seem to really understand those. And I asked her mom, does she understand 2D materials? And her mom said, well, I don't know. And so that's when we started with, what are her most motivational things? The rocking horse was one, the trampoline was one, something else was one. And we took photos of those things. And from there, we realized, which one do you want to do? And she could make a choice out of the two. Or, and that started with, here's your rocking horse, let's go ride the rocking horse. So that we paired the object with the picture until we felt like it had meaning. And then, and at the end of 2 years, she probably had about 15 to 20 at our last team meeting count. She had about 15 to 20 2D symbols that she understood. Now, this girl is 12 going on to be, the wonderful teenager. If we don't give this kid, who's now almost as big as I am, something other than her behavior, What is she going to do when she goes to the mall and doesn't want to do something? She sits on the floor, right? She will have nothing but her behavior to communicate with. And, you know, across a couple of school years, we had at least 15 to 20 symbols that she had learned, and we hope to just keep building on that. But, you know, she could make requests, she could comment, we could tell her what was coming up next. And she'd have just been stuck with nothing but her behavior to communicate anything if we had not proceeded with, well, let's try 2D and let's do it in a way that she understands. And then the book that we made, where you saw her her in the school bus, we made a book called Going to School. And it's like, first I do this, then I do this, then I get on the bus, you know, then I'm at school. And every morning waiting for the bus, her mother would sit and read that with her, you know, because she was going to school. And her mother said that's the first time in this child's life she had been able to sit with her and read a book, and the child attended to it. And she really felt like that she was getting something, that it was an enjoyable activity for the two of them. So we have to give our kids a chance. And if we don't, and many of our kids with CVI, it is visual symbols that they are going to need to use to communicate. Questions?
Do a comment that this brings to mind how critical it is to make that initial CVI assessment and diagnosis.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Someone else had asked before, you were talking about one of the devices, I guess maybe that one of the students was using in the videos. Is the device a touch chat or LAMP?
No, it was not LAMP. It was a Dynavox, and I don't remember what system Debbie had put on it. Maren's device was
I made
Dynavox.
pasta and I used the chicken that I had left. So if you want to serve yourself, come.
Hello, somebody's talking about serving. What are we having for dinner?
Oops, sorry, multitasking. Pasta with chicken in sauce.
That sounds good to me. Other questions?
People can feel free to unmute themselves and ask questions if they have them, or continue typing in the chat box. While we have everybody though, I'm gonna put up our poll for our evaluation.
Okay, I'm going to stop screen sharing so we can put faces up so people can talk.
Sure
Is that
thing.
okay?
So people can open their screen if they'd like. And if anybody has not yet signed in using the link in the chat box, if you could please sign in, that would be fantastic.
Oh, Lana, I like your picture. I like your hairdo. There's a dog up there.
Hi, Sandra.
Hi. Who is
Yeah,
this?
that's just my daughter's dog. So I just kind of put him up because he's kind of cute to look at. So